أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين، أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة، ويا باب نجاة الأمة، ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Another salawat for the love of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Contrary to the common belief that Islam is a fringe group and new in the United States, Islam is not new in the United States. Islam has roots in this country, and it came to the United States two different times. The first time, the first Muslims that came to the United States came in the 16th century, and they were slaves that were brought from Africa. In the Atlantic slave trade, they were placed in ships and brought from Africa to be slaves in the United States. Historians say that out of all of the slaves that came to the United States, between 15 to 30% of them were Muslim. But because of the circumstances that they were living in, because of their slave master who was not a Muslim, he forced them, they were forced to change their religion and become Christian, even though their original religion was Islam. This was one group of Muslims that came to the United States. And then Islam died after the slaves had to become Christian. They were forced to convert and let go of their religion, their African roots. Then, in the 18th century, Islam came once again to the United States. This time, it was families and individuals and merchants that came from greater Syria, meaning Syria today, Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan. They got on ships and they came to the United States in pursuit of opportunity, in pursuit of work. And many of them came to Detroit. They went to Detroit to work in the auto industry. That's where they found jobs. And that's where jobs were very accessible for them. Although most of those that came, they were Christian Arabs that were persecuted under the Ottoman Empire. They had to leave and they came here and made this their home. Or some of them would come to the United States, work and send money back home. A significant amount of them were also Muslim. And some of them were also Shi'as, followers of the Ahlul Bayt, that were persecuted by the Ottoman Empire in that area, in that region. So we see that Islam has its roots. In fact, Thomas Jefferson, the one who was one of the writers of the Constitution, the United States Constitution, historians say that he had a Quran with him. He had a Quran and he was inspired by the Quran when he was writing the Constitution of the United States of America. So Islam does have its roots here. Islam has been in the United States for centuries. But today, does it seem like that? Today, is Islam respected? And is Islam given the weight that it should have? Unfortunately, you see that that's not the case. You see that Muslims are the first to be attacked. Everyone, politicians, people all over, right away, if they want to attack any group, single out a group, right away Muslims are attacked. But then they're afraid to talk about any other group, any other minority, any other religion. No one dares talk about them. But Muslims, it's as if there's a free, you could do whatever you want, because no one's going to defend them. And they're not going to defend themselves. The question is, how have Muslims remained weak in the United States? How has the Islamic community in the West remained so weak, even though, despite the fact that we have a very long history here, longer than other religions, longer than other minorities? Why is it that Muslims are so easily attacked? Why is it that Muslims can't seem to defend themselves? We get excited when an actor or an actress defends us, but we can't defend ourselves. What are the reasons for this? There are two major reasons. I will speak about one of them today, and the second we will leave for another day. The first is an external reason. There are external attacks coming from outsiders against Islam and Muslims. And inshallah we will discuss this in the upcoming nights. The propaganda and the attacks, the Islamophobic attacks against the religion of Islam. Inshallah this will be discussed. However, there's another problem. Another very major problem, perhaps more important, and a very important factor in why Muslims are so backwards. And Muslims are still lagging behind other minorities. The first was an external reason, and the first is an internal reason. The internal problems, the infighting between the Muslims, the division within the Muslim community. This has caused the demise of Islam and Muslims. This is the reason of all of our suffering. You look at the beginning of history of Islam until today. The reason of our suffering is not because of outsiders. Some of us right away we go to conspiracy theories. There's others who want to attack Islam and destroy Muslims. Yes, there are others that see we are attacking ourselves, so they come and they say, let us also attack them. But if we did not attack ourselves, if we defended ourselves, if I defend my brother, who's going to dare attack my brother? But the problem with us is that we're attacking each other. We're causing internal conflict with one another. Otherwise, Islam should be on the rise. Islam should be respected. Islam should be honored. No one should feel at ease when attacking the religion of Islam like we see today in the media with politicians. You know that it was a Muslim country that was the first country to officially acknowledge the United States as an independent country. After the United States declared their independence from Britain, the first country that officially accepted the United States as a sovereign country was a Muslim country, and that was Morocco in 1777. They accepted America as a sovereign country. So you would expect, with Islam's rich history, with Islam's deep-rooted history, and a Muslim country was the first that accepted, while other Christian countries were fighting the United States, you would expect that Islam would be respected and honored. You would expect that you would have many Muslim politicians, many Muslims who are accepted and people listen to them. But that's not the case today. What's the reason? The reason is the internal conflict. The reason is the internal downfall that we have caused for ourselves. And this is something that Rasulullah told the Muslims about 14 centuries ago. Rasulullah, he tells his companions, يُوشَكْ أَن تَدَاعَى عَلَيْكُمُ الْأُمَمْ مِنْ كُلِّ أُفُقٍ كَمَا تَدَاعَى الْآكِلَةُ عَلَى قِصْعَتِهَا. He says, the nations are going to be biting at you from all corners, just like an animal, just like a beast, an animal that's ready to eat, it begins to attack from every corner. So they tell Rasulullah, "Oh Rasulullah, are we going to be qaleeloon? Are we going to be little in number on that day?" Rasulullah tells them, "No, بَلْ أَنْتُمْ كَثِيرُونَ. You will be many. In quantity, you're going to be many. وَلَكِنَّكُمْ غُثَاء. You'll be very light. There's no foundation. Just like a flood. When a flood comes, whatever is heavy, it's not carried by the flood. But anything that's weak, anything that has no substance, anything that has no foundation, that is immediately lifted with the flood." Rasulullah refers to the Muslims as whatever is very light and is lifted by the flood. And then he tells them, يَنْزَعُ اللَّهِ الْمَهَابَةِ مِنْ قُلُوبِ عَدُوِّكُمْ وَيَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِكُمُ الْوَهَنِ. The enemies, your enemies, they're not going to fear you. They're not going to give you any weight, any respect. They're going to come and attack you. And you're not going to have the wahan. You're going to وَيَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِكُمُ الْوَهَنِ. You're going to have the wahan in your heart. They ask Rasulullah, وَمَا الْوَهَنِ? What is the wahan? He tells them, حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا وَكَرَاهِيَّةِ الْمَوْتِ. You're going to have the attachment in this dunya. And you're going to be afraid of death, afraid of returning to Allah. And that's going to make you very weak. That's going to take the strength from you. The attachment of this dunya. And this is the problem of every evil. The hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says, حُبُّ الدُّنْيَا رَأْسُ كُلِّ خَطِيئَةٍ. The head and the key to every problem, the key to every sin is what? The attachment and the love of this dunya. This is what it is. All that it is the attachment to this dunya. Maybe someone loves Allah, believes in Allah, accepts Allah, but this person also is in love with this dunya. This is what happened to the enemies of Imam al-Hussein. Those that came out to kill Imam al-Hussein, many of them knew who Imam al-Hussein was. Many of them knew exactly who he was. But Ibn Ziyad had promised them money, dirhams and dinars. One of them was Ibn Sa'ad, Umar ibn Sa'ad. Umar ibn Sa'ad was from Quraysh. There was a relationship between him and Imam al-Hussein because they're all from one tribe. But then Ibn Ziyad, he comes to him, he tells him, go and kill Hussein. Be the general of this army that will kill Hussein, that will stop Hussein. He tells him, what are you going to give me if I do that? He tells him, Ibn Ziyad tells him, I'll give you the mulk of Ray, Shahr Ray, Tehran today. He tells him, I'll make you the governor of Ray if you do that. So he comes and he has a poem. He speaks to himself. Ibn Sa'd, he says, أَأَتْرُكُ مُلْكَ الرَّيِّ وَالرَّيُّ مُنْيَتِي أَمَرْجِعُ مَأْثُومٍ بِقَتْلِ حُسَيْنِ. He says, should I leave the mulk? Should I leave the governorship of Ray when Ray is my dream? But then I will have to kill Hussein if I want Ray. And then in the poem, he makes a calculation. He says, they say there is heaven and hell, and Allah will hold us to account for our actions. If they are right in what they say, I will repent to Allah after 2 years. He says, أَتُوبُ لِلرَّحْمَنِ مِنْ سَنَتَيْنِ. If they are right in what they say. Of course, Ibn Sa'd wasn't able to live 2 years. And he was killed and he did not see anything. And Imam al-Hussein told him this on the day of Ashura. Imam al-Hussein told him, you think that you're going to have mulk al-Ray by killing me? I will tell you what will happen to you. The kids in Kufa will be playing with your head. This is what will happen to you. And this is what happened to him. After Mukhtar took revenge of all those who participated in the murder of Imam al-Hussein, then the kids of Kufa, they began to play with the head of Ibn Sa'd. The problem is hubb al-dunya. And this has been the problem from the beginning of the history of Islam. This is why you have an internal conflict within Islam. Rasulullah had it all set. Allah had it all set. But because a handful of men, a handful decided to derail the ummah from the path that Allah and His Prophet had set the ummah on, because of their attachment to this dunya, they derailed the ummah, brought the ummah very far from the message, from the original message. What was that? That was the day of Saqifah. The day when they gathered in Saqifah. A handful of men. Today, some make it seem like it was a shura. It was a democracy where they all voted for another person to come other than Amir al-Mu'mineen. It was a handful of men. A handful of men in Saqifah. They were the ones who derailed the ummah. And then the majority were afraid. The majority were like sheep following a few that ruled them around. This was the first time the ummah was derailed. And this was the problem, this was the reason of all of our calamities. Because a few people decided to take matters into their own hand after they had given bay'ah to Amir al-Mu'mineen on the day of Ghadir. And then you see that most of the conflict within Muslim, it's not from outside. During the early stages of Islam, it wasn't an outside army, a foreign army that came to kill Imam al-Hussein. It wasn't a foreign army that fought Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen, they kept him in his house for 30 years. As soon as they came to him and begging him, they began to beg him to take rule and officially rule. You see, there were 3 battles that Amir al-Mu'mineen had to deal with. Within the less than 5 years that he ruled, immediately there was the battle of Jamal, and then the battle of Siffin, and then the battle of Nahrawan, where thousands were killed in these battles. And the problem is, these people that waged war against the Imam of their time, there were people that claimed to be religious. It wasn't someone that's a kafir. It wasn't someone that claimed to have no religion and no association with religion. It was a group of people that claimed to be religious. A group of people that claimed to read the Quran, that prayed, that used to fast and pray. This is our problem. It's the internal conflict. And then you go to Imam al-Hussein. It was also an internal conflict. A group of people that claimed to speak on behalf of the religion of Islam. And history continues until today. ISIS, they claim to speak on behalf of Islam. Taliban, they claim to speak on behalf of Islam. Al-Qaeda, they claim to speak on behalf of Islam. This is our problem. If it was a different group that left the Quran on one side and they want to go and carry out whatever thing they want to do, we wouldn't have a problem with them. Go and do whatever you want. But the problem is they're doing it in the name of the Quran, in the name of religion of Islam. And the most victims, the majority of the victims are Muslims themselves. Muslims are the number one victims of ISIS. Muslims are the number one victims of Taliban. Muslims are the victims of Al-Qaeda. It's the internal conflict that is destroying the ummah today. Until today you see Muslim countries suffering. Palestine, it's been how many decades? These countries, these Muslim countries, they're talking every time, yes, we need to give Palestine the right. Publicly they say something, but then behind closed doors they go and they hold secret meetings with the enemies of the Palestinians. Today, who is bombing Yemen? Who is bombing Yemen? Is it a foreign country or a Muslim country? Who is causing the bloodshed in Syria? Who is causing the bloodshed in Iraq and Afghanistan? Who goes and blows themselves up? A group of people that claim to be Muslim. So you see that there's an internal conflict. And as long as this internal conflict persists, the Muslim ummah will not be able to recover. Because Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change the matters of any community until they decide on changing themselves. Of course, there's still a chance. There is a chance for us to become strong once again. There is an opportunity for us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an example. كَم مِّن فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرَةً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ مَعَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Yes, the ones with the haqq, the ones who stand with the truth are a minority. But as long as you persist, as long as you hold on to your faith and your values and you do not let go, you will be able to be victorious. And this is what we learned from Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Imam al-Hussein, he was a minority. There was less than 150 people in the caravan of Imam al-Hussein, with women, men and children. But today Imam al-Hussein is victorious. So this gives us hope. From Imam al-Hussein we are inspired to continue striving for the sake of Allah, striving for the sake of our rights, striving for the sake of the Quran and the religion of Islam. Now, what are some of the major problems that we face as a Muslim community in the United States? And what are the solutions to those problems? They're all connected. What's going on in the Middle East is connected to what's going on here today. But there's something that I need to do. There's something that I need to do to bring the Muslims and Islam out of this perception that many people have today in this society, in this community. The first, my dear brothers and sisters, the United States is a land of opportunity. People come here to work. People come here and they find jobs. But the problem is, there's nothing wrong with working. Working is very important. Everyone should have a job. And the hadith says, مَنْ لَا مَعَاشَ لَهُ لَا مَعَادَ لَهُ. He who does not have an income, this person does not have an afterlife. So you have to work. But the problem is, sometimes we're so occupied and obsessed with how much money we make. We're occupied with our work, with our careers, that we begin to forget and neglect. This is the problem. Today you find many mosques are empty. Why? As soon as you tell someone, why don't you come to the mosque? Right away, I'm busy, I don't have time. Yes, in the United States, everyone is busy. No one has time. And as the saying goes, time is money. However, isn't my religion worthy enough for me to make some time for my religion? Does my religion carry any value in it for me to set a few hours a week for my religion? to come to the masjid, to bring my children, to educate my children, to participate in the programs of the mosque, because this is what's going to hold my identity together. Today, many, they find that the only way for them to be advanced in the society, the only way for them to be accepted, the only way for them to get a job, the only way for them to get into a good school, is if they compromise their religion and their values. But that's not the case. This is a country that was founded on freedom of religion. If you allow people to force you to let go of your values and your religion, it's going to be your fault. And if you decide on holding on to your values and your religion, you will be able to. Just like other minorities are able to do so. So many of us, we are so preoccupied that we tend to forget what's important. We're so consumed with our work, with paying the mortgage, with paying the bills, with going to work, going to school, that we forget what's important. You forget what's important. Some people, they even neglect their own children. A husband neglects his own wife. A wife, she neglects her own husband. Why? Because we're so consumed with adding more money in our bank accounts. We want to have more money. I want to have a better car. I want to have a bigger house. And this dunya, it never stops. If I have a huge house, a year later, my house, even though it's huge, it's going to look small. I'm going to want a bigger house. If I have a nice car, a year later, the newer model comes out. I have to have the newer car. If I have an iPhone, and then every year a new iPhone comes, $1,000 iPhone comes, my iPhone that I bought last year, I see it as if it's trash in front of me. This is what this society does to us, where we are never content. And this causes psychological problems. This causes divorces. Many divorces are a result of this. Muslim communities fall apart. Not only Muslim communities, communities from other religions are falling apart because we're so obsessed with this materialistic lifestyle. But lose everything, but don't lose your religion. Don't lose your values. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, on the day of Ashura, they cut off his hands. He says, Wallahi in qata'tumu yamini inni uhami abadan an dini. He says, Wallah, by Allah, you have cut off my hand, but forever I shall defend my faith. This is what's important. Unfortunately, some of us have forgotten what's important. And slowly we begin to stray away from religion. Maybe this generation, you were taught to come to the masjid. Maybe you were taught to go to the masjid by your parents, but now you're not going. Who's going to take your kids to the masjid? Who's going to teach your kids about the religion of Islam? There's going to be a lost generation that's not going to know anything about the religion of Islam. Just a few months ago, they called me and they told me there's a lady who has just passed away. So come and do the janazah prayer on this lady. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They told me to do the janazah prayer on this lady that has just passed away. So I went and I go and I speak to the family. I find out that they don't know anything from their original language. And this lady, she is over 100 years old. The lady that passed away, she was born in the United States. She was born in the United States. She has a son who is 80 years old. Her 80-year-old son could not recite Al-Fatiha for his mother that has just passed away. An 80-year-old man cannot recite Surah Al-Fatiha for his mother that has just passed away. Why? They were a very good family, a very lovely family. But the problem is there's a lost generation. The problem is I came here I was raised Islamic lifestyle. I was raised to go to the masjid. But if I don't take my children, if I don't take my family, if I don't wake up, if I'm not alert, if I don't take responsibility, there's going to be a lost generation. You know, when you're driving a car, you have to always be alert. Not for 1 second, you can't close your eyes, not even for 1 second. Because you could cause a catastrophe, a calamity. Same with us here, living in the West. We need to constantly, not only in the West, wherever you are, you need to constantly be alert. Be alert and be aware and make sure that you don't compromise your religion. How do you do that? The first, you have to be alert. Second, you have to create the atmosphere for yourself. You have to create an environment for you to feel comfortable. For your daughter, when she comes and she wears the hijab, she will feel comfortable wearing the hijab. For your son to be able to pray in that atmosphere. How do you create that atmosphere? It's through the Islamic centers, through the masjids, supporting the masjid and attending the masjid. This is very important, my dear brothers and sisters. Some of us, we think that attending the masjid is something that I could do on the side. Only Shab Ashura, on the night of Ashura and Laylatul Qadr. I come to the masjid and that's enough. Then that makes me a Muslim. Or some people, you call them 40-day Muslims. 30 days in the month of Ramadan and 10 days in Muharram. That's it. Other than that, there's nothing. No, my dear brothers and sisters. We have to support these institutions. And we have to attend these institutions. Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا يَعْمُرْ مَسَاجِدَ اللَّهِ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. The one who builds and sustains and attends the masjid is the one who believes in Allah and the one who believes in the afterlife. وَأَقَامَ الصَّلَاةِ. And the one who stands for prayer is the one who comes and prays in the masjid. Because a prayer, Allah will reward you for praying at your home. But there's no prayer like praying in the masjid. The masjid, the place of worship. This is where we create the best atmosphere. This is where we create the best environment for ourselves. Not only for ourselves, but also for our children. This is what Rasulullah did. Rasulullah, you see that the first 13 years in Mecca, Rasulullah was not able to spread the religion of Islam as freely. Only a handful of people were joining the religion of Islam. But once he went to Medina, once he migrated to Medina, the first thing Rasulullah did was he built a masjid. Even before reaching Medina, before going to where his home is, where Masjid al-Nabi is, Rasulullah was waiting in Quba for Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen, to come from Mecca after Amir al-Mu'mineen had slept in the house of Rasulullah, knowing that it's going to be attacked. Rasulullah waited for Amir al-Mu'mineen outside the borders of Medina because he wanted to enter with Ali ibn Abi Talib. He did not want to enter alone. So Rasulullah, what did he do while he was waiting? He built Masjid Quba, a masjid that was founded on piety and ikhlas. Because Rasulullah saw that the best thing to do to put the Muslims together and unite them is a masjid. And this is what the masjid of Rasulullah was. The masjid was not just a place of prayers, where the atmosphere is pure, where there is no distractions, worldly distractions. Shaitan does not enter in the masjid. This is the masjid. This is why we need to invest in the masjid. This is why we need to invest not only our money, but our time in the masjid. This is why we need to bring our children. You know, some people, as soon as they have a child, they say, I'm going to set an investment account for this child so that this child goes to university 18 years later. This is excellent. But you could start investing in your children much earlier. Start investing in the akhirah of your children. Do that through bringing them to the schools in the masjid. There's a school that is offered here. And most mosques, a Sunday school or a Saturday school. You come and you bring them to the Sunday school program. You come and you educate them. You register your children. If I don't register my children, and you don't register your children, and that person doesn't register their children, then who's going to educate these children? Where are they going to be educated? From Fox News or CNN that's constantly attacking Islam? Who do I expect to educate my children? Today the environment outside is constantly attacking Islam specifically and all forms of religion generally. So we have to create an atmosphere for ourselves. And the masjid is the best place. So everyone should feel accepted in the masjid. The masjid should have a place for the children. Children should be attending. You go to some communities, they say, let the children be outside. They're left running around, and then if they are naughty, if they make sounds, if they make noise, they yell at them. No, let them attend. Let them attend. They come and they say, but these children, they're going to disturb. They're going to cause chaos. Yes, they're going to cause chaos if they don't understand what's being said. But you come and you give a child an iPad, you see they're glued to the TV. You see that they're glued to the iPad. The problem is not with the children. They could pay attention. The problem is with us. We have not offered to them something to pay attention to, something to listen to. A masjid should have a place for the children, a place for the youth. The youth, they also need a place. The most important time of your life is during the youth. The most important time. That's the time that decides if you're going to be a good person or a bad person. That's the time that decides whether you're going to be successful in life or not successful. And it's also the time that decides whether you're going to be successful in the afterlife or not. This is why every masjid in the West needs to have a place for the youth to come. Yes, we set time for prayer, time for lecture, but you also set other activities for them. Tutoring, let them come here in the masjid and tutor. Play sports, let them do it around the masjid, with the community. This is the best thing for them. Would you rather have your children play with strangers or play with the kids and the youth that you see in the masjid? Of course the ones that are in the masjid. And then when it's prayer time, they come and they pray. The adults, they also deserve a program. They deserve programs that help them and provide for their needs. The elderly, the senior citizens. There are 37 million senior citizens in the United States. 37 million. 2 million of them are going through depression. 2 million out of the 37 million senior citizens over 65 are going through depression. The masjid should be a place that caters for their needs, provides for them. In fact, the masjid should be running 24 hours a day. For some communities, you see it's locked until the day of Jum'ah, until Thursday night. That's it. No. Every day there should be activities. Every day there should be a program for all groups of people. The masjid should have many activities. Everyone should feel welcomed. The men, the children, the adults, the women. Women make up 50% of the population. But you go to some communities, you see that they are not respected. They're not heard. Their voice, their opinion is not respected. How is that? If a society that oppresses and neglects the opinion of 50% of that society, how is that society going to be successful? But unfortunately, you see that some of us, we're still living in that village mentality. We came to the United States. We drive an American car. We drive a German car. We have a very nice house. We work for an American company. But our mentality is a village mentality. They say you could take a man out of a village, but you can't take the village life out of him. You can't take the village mentality out of him. And this is how some of us are today. Still living as if we're living back in our own countries, back home. This should change. If I want to advance, if I want the religion of Islam to advance, then I have to help every member in the community advance. This is how communities become successful. When you invest in that youth, when you invest in that lady, when you invest in even that elderly man, that's how we create a community. That's how you create a loving community that supports one another, that helps one another. You go and you look at other communities, you see that they sponsor people to go and visit that specific country. They sponsor the youth. How many of us help some of the youth go to Hajj? How many of us who are well off, they help the youth go to do the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein? Because that's what makes you, that's what helps you, that's what builds your faith. This is what we should do. And then the masjid should not be a place that is only for Muslims. Today, many non-Muslims have not set foot in the masjid. They have not set foot in the masjid. And studies show that most of the Islamophobia that we see today, most of the attacks against the religion of Islam are people who have no clue what the religion of Islam is. They don't know what the religion of Islam is. Why don't we open our doors? Why don't we have interfaith activities? We bring them, we teach them, we educate them. In fact, you don't even need to show them, you don't need to teach them anything. Just a few weeks ago when there was a Hurricane Harvey, I'm sure you all remember it. In Texas, there is a mega church by Joel Osteen. And everyone heard this. He has a mega church that holds 17,000 people. He closed it when there was a hurricane. Everyone, the media began to speak against him. But a few Muslim masjids, even though it corresponded with the day of Eid al-Adha, a few masjids, they opened their doors and they made the masjid a shelter for non-Muslims. You know how much good publicity this brought for Islam and Muslims? 6, 7 mosques became shelters. And the Imam of the mosque, he says, we would rather pray in the parking lot on the day of Eid and let the people stay in the masjid and be comfortable. This is the spirit of Islam, my dear brothers and sisters. This is Islam. The message of Islam, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Rasulullah was not sent as a mercy to just the people of Quraysh or just the Muslims. Rasulullah was sent as a mercy to everyone. But unfortunately, you find that there's a group of people that restrict and contain the message of Islam. And by doing that, we are oppressing Rasulullah. We are oppressing the religion of Islam. Rasulullah, he allowed Christians to come in his own masjid. Go and read about the event of Al-Mubahala. They came in the masjid of Rasulullah. Christians. Some of the Muslims, as soon as they saw them, they came with their cross. They came, as some of the Muslims right away, they said, no, this person is not allowed in the masjid. Like what you see some people today. Rasulullah said, leave them, let them come. They entered the masjid and they began to pray in their own way. And then after their prayer, they came to speak to Rasulullah. The event of Mubahala. فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ. Allah speaks about it in the Quran. So the masjid should be a place for everyone. And this is how you create a Muslim community. This is how you create a successful Muslim community. Sometimes you see that there's one person that spoils it for everyone. One person that ruins it for everyone. If we are sincere Muslims, we have to look at the overall benefit. Not just now. Imagine Islam in 100 years from now. Imagine Islam 200 years from now, where your children and your grandchildren are going to be representing the religion of Islam. This is what we should look at. We should be far-sighted. Don't be restricted with cultures. Sometimes cultures go against religion. I have to know where I prioritize religion and where I let go of the culture. Cultures, it's okay to let go of the culture. Your religion is what's important. So this is a very important point. Another very important point is that we must stop the fighting within one another, within our communities. Isn't it enough that we stop fighting with one another? Today the whole world is making a mockery. We're making a mockery of ourselves. The whole world is watching Muslims fight with one another. The whole world is watching and enjoying it, some of them. Muslims kill one another, bomb one another. Isn't it time that we stop? Isn't it time that we unite? And we look at what unites us. We come and look at what brings us together, our commonalities. But you find some of us, we're willing to unite with a Christian and a Jewish person, but I cannot unite with another Muslim person. This is a problem. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, who was with the Haqq. He was with the Haqq from day one. They came and they kept him in his home. Amir al-Mu'mineen could have caused bloodshed. He could have went and fought. But he says, لَأُسَالِمَنَّ مَا سَلِمَتْ أُمُورِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. I will be at peace as long as the Muslims are at peace. Amir al-Mu'mineen was very farsighted. He realized that if he comes and he fights today, then all of Islam will be destroyed. So he says, I will be at peace as long as the religion of Islam is at peace. I use religion to carry out whatever I want to do. This is what the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt did. This is what the enemies of Imam Hussein did. They used religion to kill Imam al-Hussein. They used the Quran to justify the killing of Imam al-Hussein, just like what ISIS is doing today. We have to stop the division within our communities. We have to unite our mosques. We have to unite, be together. This is the only way that we will be able to succeed in the long term. This is the only way that we will be able to pass the trials that we are facing today as a Muslim community in the West. I don't need to go and convert other people to the religion of Islam. All I have to do is have good akhlaq with my neighbor. All I have to do is show the values of the religion of Islam. Live as a real, true Muslim. And that will be enough. So these are some ingredients to have a successful Muslim community in the West. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, let us turn our hearts to Kufa. That city where Imam al-Hussein sent his ambassador. He sent his trustee, Muslim ibn Aqil. He sent him to Kufa. Before he goes, after the people of Kufa had written thousands of letters to Imam al-Hussein telling him to come. Some people would tell him, if you don't come, it's going to be your responsibility. You're going to be held accountable in front of Allah if you don't come. We are ready. We don't want a man like Yazid. So Imam al-Hussein, he sent Muslim ibn Aqil. And when Muslim ibn Aqil entered Kufa, over 18,000, they gave bay'ah to Muslim ibn Aqil. They accepted Muslim ibn Aqil. And then Yazid, he sent Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, who was in Basra. He sent him to Kufa to bring down the rebellion that was led by Muslim ibn Aqil at that time. So Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he covers his face and he enters Kufa. He goes in the governor's palace in Kufa and he begins to pass out money. He begins to pass money to people that had just given bay'ah to Muslim ibn Aqil. He gives this person gold dinars. He begins to imprison people. Many of the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the Shia of Imam al-Hussein were imprisoned by Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. And he brought martial law. He brought police. They would close the streets. Anyone who they suspect that this person is a follower of Muslim ibn Aqil, right away this person would be arrested. Muslim ibn Aqil, people had given him allegiance. He was staying in the home of Hani ibn Urwa. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he captures Hani ibn Urwa and he imprisons Hani ibn Urwa. Now Muslim ibn Aqil has no place to go. He was a guest in the house of Hani ibn Urwa, but the host is in prison now. Where is he supposed to go? He leads the prayer. He turns around and he sees that everyone has dispersed. It's become nighttime. Where is he supposed to go? Everyone is afraid. This mother, she comes and she grabs her son. She says, don't get involved with this. This father, he comes and he tells his son, stay away from Muslim ibn Aqil. It looks like something bad's going to happen. Keep away from this. Muslim ibn Aqil, he leaves Masjid al-Kufa lonely, all alone. He has nowhere to go. It's nighttime. This city is not his city. He's from Medina. Where is he supposed to go? He begins walking in the streets of Kufa until he sees a lady waiting by her house. He goes and he tells her, "Oh lady, do you have a cup of water? I'm thirsty." She comes, she brings him the water, he drinks the water, and then he stays standing in front of the house of this honorable lady, a lady by the name of Taw'a. This lady who one day, one hour, she kept her name in history. Today, every year they remember this lady because of one action that she did, because she helped Muslim ibn Aqil. She comes and she sees Muslim ibn Aqil standing outside her house. She tells him, "What are you doing? You're a stranger standing in front of my house. لا أحل لك الجلوس أمام بيتي. I don't give you permission to stand in front of my home. Who are you? Go away. Go to your family." He tells her, "يا أمة الله والله ليس لي في هذا المصر أهلا ولا عشيرة." I don't have, "Oh lady, I don't have family in the city. I don't have anyone." She tells him, "Who are you? Who are you? A person who doesn't have family." He tells her, "أنا مسلم ابن عقيل سفير الحسين." I am Muslim ibn Aqil, the ambassador of Hussein. She tells him, "You're Muslim? You're Muslim that everyone gave bay'ah to, everyone gave allegiance to?" He tells her, "Yes, I am Muslim ibn Aqil, and everyone has neglected me, everyone has left me." So she tells him, "Welcome, welcome to my home." She opens her door. He goes. She brings him food. He doesn't eat. He sleeps that night. He stays in the house of that lady. He sleeps that night, but he knows that this is his last night. Her son, he went and he told the authorities that Muslim ibn Aqil is staying in his mother's home. So by morning, all of the authorities, they had gathered outside the house of Taw'a. That night, Muslim ibn Aqil, he sees in his dream Amir al-Mu'mineen, his uncle Ali ibn Abi Talib, telling him, "Oh Muslim, we are anticipating your arrival. Oh Muslim, you will be with us shortly." So Muslim ibn Aqil, once he sees that the house has been surrounded from all corners, he takes his sword, he goes out the house and he begins to fight them courageously. Muslim ibn Aqil, even though he was one man, but on that day he reminded them of the bravery of Amir al-Mu'mineen, his uncle Ali ibn Abi Talib. He begins to fight them. He begins to say, "أقسمت أن لا أقتل إلا حرا وإن رأيت الموت شيئا نكرا كل امرئ يوما ملاق شرا هيهات أن أخدع أو غرا." He begins to fight them. They send more soldiers. They were not able to defeat that man, Muslim ibn Aqil, until they dig a trench for Muslim and they cover it. Muslim falls. He falls in the trench. Then they capture him. They capture him and they take him to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. He remains quiet. They tell him, "Say salam to the Amir." He says, "Wallah, he is not my Amir. My Amir is Hussein, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib." Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he says, "Whether you say salam or don't say salam, you're a dead man. Take him on top of the roof and kill him on top of the roof." So they take Muslim ibn Aqil on top of the roof of the palace. Muslim ibn Aqil begins to cry. They tell him, "Why are you crying? You were just fighting so bravely." He says, "I don't cry for myself. myself. I cry for Hussein and the family of Hussein who are coming, and they don't know that you have betrayed me and turned against me. Then Muslim ibn Aqil, he asks for some water to drink. They bring the water to Muslim ibn Aqil. He places it in front of his mouth, but his mouth was injured. As soon as they brought the water in front of him, it was filled with his own blood. So Muslim ibn Aqil did not drink that water. Subhanallah, Allah destined for Imam al-Hussein and all of his companions, even Muslim ibn Aqil, to die thirsty. Then Muslim ibn Aqil, he prayed 2 rak'ahs, and then he faced Mecca, he faced Hijaz. He begins saying, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Oh Hussein, ارجع من حيث أتيت فإن القوم قد غدروا بي. Oh Hussein, go back, don't come to Kufa, they have betrayed me. Then Talha was standing under the palace. They were watching what will happen to Muslim, what will they do to Muslim. Suddenly they see that the body of a Muslim was thrown from the palace. Everyone call wa Muslima wa Shahida. Muslim ibn Aqil and Hani ibn Urwa, they were tied by their feet and they were dragged. Their bodies were dragged in the streets of Kufa. Jan Khatm al-Mursalin Dar Kufa Ja Darad Nadarad Behtar az Ruh al-Amin Dar Kufa Ja Darad Nadarad Afsar Jambaz Haq Dar Kufa Sargardan u bikas Naib Sultan Din Dar Kufa Ja Darad Nadarad Muslim bi Khanuman Dar Kuche ha mi gardad imshab Yak jahan iman u din Dar Kufa ja darad nadarad. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was traveling from Mecca in the direction of Iraq. He tells them, what's the news of Iraq? What do you have news from Iraq? They tell him, oh Hussein, we left Kufa and we saw Muslim and Hani being dragged in the street of Kufa. Imam al-Hussein began to cry. Then he says, bring me Hamida, the daughter of Muslim. The daughter of Muslim ibn Aqil was with the caravan of Imam al-Hussein. So Imam al-Hussein, they brought Hamida to him. He placed him in his lap. Then he began to wipe on the head of Hamida. She tells him, Ya Am, araka tasna'u bi ma yusna'u bil aytam. Oh uncle, I see you dealing with me the way you deal with the orphans. Have I become an orphan? Imam Hussein tells her, Ya Hamida, ana abuki wa nisa'i wa banati akhawatuki. I am like your father. I will be here. I will show you love as long as I can. This was one day. But Sukayna, the daughter of Imam al-Hussein, she had no one to wipe his hand on her head. She came to the body of Imam al-Hussein. She began to cry over the body of Imam al-Hussein. They began to hit her every time. Every time she cries. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. العلي العظيم. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله 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 يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات. تابع اللهم بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك غافر الخطيئات إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم ارزقنا زيارة الحسين. اللهم ارزقنا شفاعة الحسين. اللهم اجعلنا مع الحسين. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. Everyone stand for the Imam of our time. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. صل على